Morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to participate in CNIC's conference. Very excited to be here. If you don't know me, I'm Howard Pfeffer. I'm the president and CEO of Internet2, a national research and education network here in the US. Today I'm going to be both moderating and participating as a panelist. I'll see if I can avoid asking myself any hard questions in that unique role. So today's panel is really focused on global grand challenges: climate crisis, the need for clean energy, public health emergencies like COVID, conserving our marine resources, and many others. And I'm a firm believer, I think most here would agree, that these challenges really require a global scientific collaboration. And that collaboration, which often involves the exchange of large amounts of scientific data, cultural and artistic exchanges, transnational education, and access to global large-scale instruments like the Square Kilometer Array, telescopes, and others. They require a robust broadband infrastructure to support those collaborations. And the community has developed over the years a global national fabric or a global fabric by research and education networks that's resilient, coherent, secure, and provides reliable high-speed connectivity and customized services to bolster scientific discovery and innovation. So today, we've got some amazing colleagues and representatives of research education networks here in North America. And we're going to explore the unique role that they play both individually and collectively in support of these grand challenges. So I'm going to briefly just give a quick introduction of who's on the panel, and then I'll start off with the first question. So we have in the order I wrote down the names, so it's not the order they're sitting. Kathryn Anthonisen, who is the president and CEO of CANARY, which is Canada's Research Education Network. Kathryn was appointed CEO in July of 2023. And prior to that, she was the vice president of external relations at CANARY for over 11 years. So Kathryn, welcome. Inder Monga. Inder leads, he's the executive director at ESNet, which is a high-performance network interconnecting national labs systems in the US, and he's also the director of scientific network division at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Moisés Torres is appointed the general director of the University Corporation for Internet Development in Mexico. And he also previously was a vice president of Paragon Technologies and served as the Technology Innovation Coordinator of the Open and Distance University in Mexico under the Ministry of Public Education. And of course, Sylvie Cosgrove, who is the Executive Director of IT at Stanford and Chair of the CNIC Board, and had previously many years' experience as serving as the first Chief Information Officer at Cloudflare. So that's our fantastic panel. Give him a round of applause, and then I'll start off with the first questions. So we're going to start just by asking each of the panelists to give some opening remarks, about 5 minutes, a bit about their organization, their network, ways that they engage global collaboration around grand challenges using this collective R&E fabric that we have. Add in some of the collaborations or opportunities to collaborate with CNIC, and also tell us your favorite band and/or your favorite food. And I'm going to start with Inder, because you're the farthest away.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello, good morning. This is the easiest question, right? Talk about yourself and what do you do. So ESNet, or Energy Sciences Network, is what we call DOE's data circulatory system. And that's kind of a way to imagine it. We move data among the 17 national labs that we connect to. These national labs house 28 national user facilities. And when I say national user facilities, it is, big supercomputers. So the top 10, three of the top 10 supercomputers, and actually the number one in the world in Oak Ridge called Frontier is our instruments that are connected to the network. There are fusion reactors, there are light sources, and all science instruments that produce a whole amount of data. In order to cover and connect to all these national labs and many other DOE assets that we connect to, we have a nationwide footprint very similar to Internet 2. It's 15,000 miles of fiber terrestrially in the United States. But then we also connect to CERN, which has a Large Hadron Collider in Europe. So we have bandwidth that goes transatlantically, and in Europe with our partner GEONT, which is another research and education network to connect to CERN in Geneva. Kind of a little bit about DOE. I mean, DOE, Department of Energy, I think probably you've heard of that. Its mission is energy. And as part of that, it's kind of funded at around $40 billion every year. So you kind of think about it, the network that we have supports many of those investments. We focus on science. So we are science, primarily science network. And why science? I mean, we carry traffic for different science communities, from the Large Hadron Collider, high energy physics community, the nuclear physics community, the climate community, the Earth Sciences Grid Federation, the data, the CMAP data, which is kind of the authoritative data for climate change, which people use for IPCC, and all the intergovernmental panels is housed on a grid. The US part of it is located on ESNet. So those are the kind of things that we do. We just completed a brand new upgrade called ESNet 6 in 2022. And when we did the upgrade, the kind of capacity that we had lit or turned on was around 46 terabits per second if you add everything up. As Howard mentioned, the research and education community works very closely with each other. So we peer actively. We have more than 250 to around 270 peers. And if you add up the capacity of a peering, that adds up to around 3 terabits per second as well. So we peer actively, and we peer at high bandwidth, because the whole thing about R&E is exchanging traffic. So it may be generated at an instrument in DOE, going to a university for getting processed, or it may be generated at an instrument somewhere abroad, like a telescope down in Chile, and then come through multiple research and education networks back to the States for processing. One of the ways how we know what our scientists need and what to do is something called, we do a requirements review analysis. The science engagement team, I think Jason and Andrew are in the crowd here, so please hit them up. Every 2 to 3 years, we look at one of the science offices, whether it be high energy physics or nuclear physics, and we sit down with the scientists and they do case studies. And by case studies means they'd say, what are they going to do for science in 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Are they building a new instrument? What will that instrument need? What is the process of science? Where are they going to move the data from, to, and process? So once we understand that, I think we can derive the requirements and what we need to do in the network in order to meet those needs. This kind of work is available to the whole community. It is published on our website. So if you look at requirements reviews reports, you can see the reviews going back 10 years, and you can read those case studies and understand how scientists actually use the network and benefit from the network. Thank you.
Thanks, Inder. Well, Kathryn.
Thank you, Howard. Good morning, everyone. It's a delight to be here. Canary is not the NREN in Canada. Actually, the NREN, Canary is the federal partner of Canada's NREN, which is made up of Canary, 10 provincial and 3 territorial networks, almost 25,000 miles of fiber optic cable from coast to coast to coast, from the very northernmost connection at Nunavut Arctic College, which is 63 degrees latitude, which is similar to Helsinki or Bergen, down to the south to the communities, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and then back up north in the Northwest Territories to Iqaluit. So the Canary network, and Canary as an organization is a bit different from most NRENs around the world. When Canary was created by the federal government, and we are almost 100% funded by the federal government, when we were created back in 1993, part of our articles of incorporation stated that Canary's role was to increase the economic and social well-being of Canadians through the deployment and adoption of advanced technology. So that is quite an expansive mandate, as you can imagine. And the structure that we work under is that typically we get funded in 5-year tranches by the Government of Canada. And over the course of our 31-year history, the focus has changed over time. So initially in the 90s and the early aughts, it was really about developing the backbone network across Canada and linking to regional networks in the provinces and territories. And much like in the United States, there are certain jurisdictions within Canada where those provincial and territorial networks are more advanced. You can imagine the provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, Quebec, and Ontario have organizations almost as large as Canary. They connect 25 to 30 institutions within their jurisdictions. So we partner with them, but we also need to support regional networks in smaller jurisdictions like Saskatchewan or Prince Edward Island, and ensure that the entire network fabric across the country evolves in a cohesive and coordinated manner so that no one is disadvantaged in terms of research and education networking. So the network and our relationships with the NREN are foundational to everything we do. We collaborate with our partners within Canada and with 120 odd research and education networks around the world. So that network foundation enables Canada to participate now officially in global challenges, global research initiatives like the Square Kilometer Array, like CERN, like the 30-meter telescope, et cetera, et cetera. But we also have this expansive mandate around evolving digital adoption for Canadians and taking on more timely challenges. So early on, the first 10 years or so of Canary's existence, the real focus was on developing the network and getting Canadians online. So Canary was involved in things like an internet treasure hunt for high school students, very early telepresence applications. E-business, e-health, if you remember that language from the 90s, right? Everything was E for electronic, e-business, e-health, e-learning. So that was kind of the first decade. The second decade, the government asked us to help researchers more effectively leverage this tremendous asset, the NREN. So we were involved in funding research software, research data management, research platforms, some of which still exist today. That funding that was spun out in 2007, 2008, many, 5 or 6 of those research platforms still exist today and have evolved to meet the needs of the research community. More recently, the Government of Canada has asked Canary to take a lead role in coordinating cybersecurity for the research and education community in Canada. So the NREN in Canada connects about 800 institutions. That includes research hospitals, government research labs, universities, colleges, CEGEPs, polytechnics. What they asked Canary to do was work with our community to continually enhance the cybersecurity capabilities and posture of the higher education community across Canada. And that, of course, much like in the United States, means everything from the 90,000 student University of Toronto to a small rural CEGEP in Quebec with 250 students and everything in between. So that's been very much the focus of our current mandate, 2020 to 2025. And also we have a mandate to support private sector innovation. So how to get entrepreneurs and small businesses across Canada to adopt transformative technologies to help them sharpen their competitive edge in a globally competitive world. So while the NREN is absolutely the foundation of everything we do at Canary, our quite expansive mandate asks us to leverage what we know about optical networking and all of the services on top of the network to engage our community in a wide variety of other initiatives that are critical particularly in this day and age when nation states are after us and R&E is a top target of these threat actors, to ensure that all the hard work that the research community does remains secure and drives benefit to the right communities. Thank you.
Great. Moisés?
Yes. Hello. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I do like to thank Lois Fox for inviting us to this panel. And it's a real pleasure to be here this morning with everyone here. I'm Moisés Torres. I'm the executive director for the what you would call University Corporation for the Development of Internet in Mexico, which is the NREN in Mexico. Better known for its short name, CUDI. CUDI was born in 1999, almost similar to CINIC. We are on our 25th year. And it was born out of a presidential mandate in 1999 with the intention of developing this NREN network through Mexico for research and development. And since then, I think CUDI has grown tremendously, not only in Mexico, but it has made all these great collaborations with South America and also some of the North American research institutions, especially here in the US. And with CUDI, what we are working on, it's basically on, we have a current mandate with the government to develop projects that are of national interest, from cybersecurity to, as you know, well, cybersecurity, it's one of the big issues because the higher education institutions, not only in Mexico, but in South America, are the most hacked in the world by Russia and China. And so this new mandate by the government, it's really, really important to us right now. And I think the research community that we have in Mexico is beginning to look at this issue more seriously. And we've been able to create this community of cybersecurity experts at every research institute, not every, but we have right now 32 universities working on this issue. So that's one of the aspects of CUDI that we currently have. We're also working, the model with CUDI is very unique in the sense that we work with over 100 university institutions in Mexico. And not all are members, but we do have over 50 members of CUDI who usually pay a membership fee. That's how we maintain ourselves and how we maintain the network. And we also work with the what is called CONACYT, which is similar to the National Science Foundation, where we're able to receive funding from for specific projects related to higher education and also national issues of importance. And so that's the way we've been able to survive this 25 years. Now we're beginning to expand some of our services to research, to some of the higher education institutions and research labs in Mexico through services of IT services that CUDI is being able to provide to these institutions, obviously at basically at a lower price than the market in Mexico. But that's one of the initiatives that the government encourages us to do, basically because of the lack of funding that they would be providing. Unless they're projects of importance to the country in that sense. And luckily, we've had the opportunity to collaborate not only with Mexican institutions, but also with institutions from South America, where we've been collaborating with their NRENs there, from services to cloud services to cybersecurity services to developing software together through these lines and sharing some of the work that we've done. So CUDI, the last 25 years, I think, has evolved very differently, and it is growing. And I think it's continuing to evolve, not only in the research part, but also on the services part. That's unlike Canada, we don't receive that block funding from the federal government. So we have to survive in that sense. And the research institutions have been working with us very, very closely on that, especially in the development of the network, in itself, and also the maintenance of the network. As you know, that's one of the big expenses with all this infrastructure. But we are growing. We have more than 100 and something institutions collaborating in some aspect, whether it is with initiatives that we are running, projects that we are working on together, and up to the services part. So that's what we're doing right now with CUDI in Mexico. And in Mexico, we have, those of you who are not familiar as much, we have two entrances into the US. One is through the Tijuana area into UC San Diego, and the other one is through Ciudad Juárez, which is to El Paso, Texas, through UT El Paso. And that's how we're able to get into the US and also to Canada in that aspect. And on the south, we have a connection that goes through Tapachula, which goes into Guatemala, and we connect through what is called Red Clara. And Red Clara, it's sort of a coordinator for all of the Latin American NRENs. And we're able to work very closely with Red Clara to make those connections into the South American countries, from Argentina all the way to Colombia, and now Panama is beginning to connect there. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll take a few minutes to talk a little bit about Internet 2. So Internet 2, I think we're coming up shortly on our 27th year anniversary. So Internet 2 is a National Research Education Network. We are a member organization. So we have, I think, over 330 now higher ed members. We have all the state and regional network partners that we interconnect. We have federal affiliates, many federal agencies, and also other affiliates that usually represent cultural institutions like libraries or museums, and industry partners as well. So we have a unique role in bringing together all those different segments together. Our network is, I think, about now 18,000-ish miles of fiber, over which we offer all the latest upgrades. That's, we upgraded our network a few years ago, finished it a few years ago, of the latest technology, 400 gig services, all the ability to connect at all the different layers of network connectivity, peering, significant peering, as well as private connections to cloud providers, which is, of course, increasingly popular necessity amongst our community. Automation, APIs, portals, all the things you need to run a modern high-performance network. One of the things we did when we last upgraded was we were able to also about 80% of our fiber routes we were able to upgrade to low loss fiber, which had an impact of allowing us to require less things like less amplification, which initially helped lower our power. We lowered our power from the previous network to about 2/3. So that was a pretty significant upgrade. So that's sort of the bits part and the optical part of the network. As far as engaging with the grand challenges, so sort of the two roles. One is where we partner with everybody in the community to be part of the global fabric. So we, for instance, we host about 12 caches in our network that are part of the Open Science Data Federation. So which some people like to conceptualize as sort of the Netflix for scientific data. It's a caching system that's run out of OSG in University San Diego. We have a lot of partnerships. Inder mentioned about the North Atlantic, so we part of a collaboration there with Canary, ESNet, Jayan, and some of the European research education networks to add capacity in the North Atlantic. We just recently there was a great collaboration on turning up 400 gig connectivity that we announced, I think last week. We also, for another example of a great collaboration, all the international, the fabric, they connect at open exchange points, like Pacific Wave operates on the West Coast. We operate some on the East Coast. There's several in North America, including in Canada. And we just announced a new collaboration of interconnecting those exchange points, as well as a focus on coordination, operations, and sharing tools to make it easier for global science collaborations to access the U.S. And also, one of the roles that we play is actually transiting traffic between NRENs. So traffic may come in from the Pacific to Pacific Wave, comes to Internet 2, then has to go out to Europe or to Latin America or to Canada, and so there's an important role of being part of the fabric that we do together. We also, for instance, announced a new initiative called Metronova, which is about monitoring and measurement tools that several of us are working on, so that there's a common way of looking at international traffic and a common set of tools. So it's critical, again, to not just support the needs of your constituents or your members and individual scientific endeavors or educational endeavors, but also to be an active member and being part of this global fabric. In addition to the network side, we also run the Uncommon, which is the U.S.'s part of the Global Trust and Identity Federation. Again, it's another federation that then federates with EduGain in Europe, and that's another critical part of the fostering and supporting scientific collaborations addressing grand challenges is the identity access management part. And we also run the U.S. instance of EduRoam, for all those who are familiar. It's everybody's favorite service is EduRoam. And actually, we've been working with several of our state and regional partners on expanding EduRoam to support K through 12 as well, which is a really exciting effort. Specifically for grand challenges, I'll just take one: climate change. We have a great, again, collaborations and partnerships, and we support, NOAA, for instance. NOAA's N-Wave network runs on our optical platform. We have a great partnership with NOAA. UCAR, NASA, USGS, these are all, again, agencies and part of our community that we all collectively work together with, and certainly Internet 2 plays its role in that. In fact, a lot of that work with scenic we jointly wind up, as we do with many of our regional partners, collectively providing different parts of the connectivity to support those agencies. And that's critically important. Specifically, just to mention a few things, our great longstanding collaboration with Scenic. For instance, we do a lot of spectrum sharing. So we share spectrum in California for part of our network. We use Scenic Spectrum. Likewise, the Western Regional Network shares spectrum on internet too. So the idea of sharing resources for the betterment of the community is something that we have a long history of especially working with Scenic on, but as well as others. I mentioned cloud connectivity. I think there's something like 30 private cloud connections from Scenic members that use our cloud service. DDoS was another collaboration that we did with Scenic. I know that's been a popular service here for K-12. So, for me, the biggest takeaway is lots of technology, but the real win, I think the superpower of RNE networks is really been community and collaboration. And so that continues to sort of be our focus. So thank you. With that, I'm going to go to our first question. And this is a question that I think it may be a law now that you have to have a question like this in every panel. So I think we're going to have to do it, which is, how does AI fit into your current operations and future plans? So Sylvie, do you want to?
Good morning again. Obviously, I didn't have my Wheaties this morning. So AI, I know that is the latest buzzword. I think a few years ago it was Zoom because of the pandemic, and now it's AI. And it's not that AI hasn't always been here, but I think AI in the past has always been related to research and education. But AI is now becoming part of our everyday life, just as Zoom did during the pandemic. And I think just as Zoom and other web conferencing tools, it really put a demand on our network, made us think more about what we need in our network. It's not just about high speed, it's low latency as well. And again, not just for research, education, and business, but in our everyday lives, and to enable critical services such as healthcare that we saw being able to continue with telehealth because of the network. I think the interesting thing about AI is it's, again, not just for research and education. It is also plays a part in critical services. I happened to listen in on a panel of Stanford Medicine just last week that was led by the CIO for the School of Medicine, as well as Stanford Healthcare, Michael Pfeffer. And it was also a panelist was Natalie Pagler, who is the CMIO for Stanford Children's Healthcare. And what was interesting is how AI is playing a part there. AI has really, as far as data, has always been about adult data, but not about children's data. And that has so much for pediatrics. For example, they're utilizing it to utilizing ambient AI to track how often people are washing their hands or where they're washing their hands, because it does a couple of things. How effectively is that happening? Are hand washing locations in effective locations? What do we need to do to improve upon that? It's also making procedures. Again, if you think about healthcare is all about utilizing technology to improve the client experience. One of the things that they're looking at is how can they minimize the amount of sedation that they need to do for patients for MRIs and X-rays. I think any of you have gone through those procedures, everyone just gets a little tense. So how can they make that less of an experience? And they're utilizing AI to predict some more of what they might have to keep a patient under sedation to gather. So I think as we look at AI, it's going to put increased demand on our network, not just for research and education, but for critical services and wherever those endpoints, wherever those patients are. And I think that is important. It's not just about our institutions, it's everywhere in our communities. And I think that a lot of the initiatives that Scenic, Internet 2, and others are involved in, it's not just expanding it to institutions and businesses, but it's to people's homes, et cetera, because the internet network is going to be critical for everyone.
Let's take this one. Thanks. I'll ask myself, Howard. Well, first, I also forgot to mention the soundtrack for my life has always been the Rolling Stones. And favorite food is, well, that's a tough one. Probably the Chow Fun at Wohops on 17 Mott Street in Manhattan. If you ever get a chance, don't miss it. So yeah, I mean, there's when I think about AI, certainly the role of people of the network side of getting people connected to where the large language models are on-prem national centers or the large cloud providers, and that's certainly going to be a critical role. Moving large training sets around. We're just going to see more and more of that, I think that's a given. But I think the way I look at it is there's a part of how do you help or how do you offer to your constituents AI as a service or AI as a platform. But then there's also how do you use AI in your own organization? And certainly in a network context, there's networks throw off, not just carry a lot of data, but they create a lot of data. That's important when you run a network. And so there's huge opportunities to look at. And I think everybody I know who's running a network is looking at AI as a meaningful tool to help analyze your network, plan your network, and run your network. I also think you can't do any of those things without software development, and there's a big, emergence of how AI is going to impact software engineering and software development. I read something somewhere that like they did a survey last year, and in GitHub, and something like 41 or 42% of the code has been AI assisted, and this is just going to continue. And accelerate at an exponential pace. And so that's something that I think every organization that does anything with technology is going to have to look at. And there's obviously some positive and negative impacts of that. So with that, I'll pass it on. Moisés?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, with Kudri, what we're doing with this issue of AI, as part of Kudri, we have communities of certain topics. And one of these communities is the AI community that's examining a few areas. In this sense, we're looking more into the impact of AI into our higher education institutions and how is the AI impacting the learning process for students in higher ed, which happens to be a big issue in higher education institutions right now in Mexico. So we have this group examining this issue. As you know that nowadays students are using Chat GPT just about for everything. So you don't know if they've written what they've written or the ideas are their ideas. And which is very, very difficult to adopt, especially as higher education is concerned, especially for professors in higher ed. That's a big issue that's been examined in this group. The other aspect is more the uses of supercomputing that. And how do we use it to be able to develop or use data and process data to get new information in that sense. And so this group is working very closely as well with, in Mexico, we have 8 supercomputing centers. And we have representatives from each center in this AI group. So they're examining those issues in how to advance AI in Mexico in different routine aspects, from data analysis to robotics and to different areas. So definitely AI, it's in Mexico, it's very important. It's growing very, very rapidly. I think kids are beginning to understand that faster than than what we can, and they're using it faster than probably we do. And it's becoming a big issue in Mexico in every aspect from that involves also part of cybersecurity. For example, banks are very concerned in that sense. And so as a national issue with the government right now is how do we grow in this new environment where AI is implemented, and how do we best use it not only in the education area, but also in private industry, in banks, in government, and so forth. So this group has a lot of work, and I think they're making progress in that sense.
All right, thank you. I'll be brief, just to shout out to a couple of the fathers of AI located in Canada, Yoshio Bengio at the University of Montreal and Jeff Hinton, the father of neural networks at a University of Toronto. Our issue in Canada is, and the network does much of what Howard described. You know, we connect to advanced research computing facilities to enable AI. We connect all these researchers. We're starting to investigate AI tools. Really, in Canada, the issue is, you know, there's a national AI strategy based in part on these extraordinary researchers who have got us this far. Our issue in Canada is compute capacity. Canary is actually, earlier, I didn't mention, Canary is also kind of an incubator. So one of the things that we incubated was an organization called Compute Canada, which spun out of Canary to enable advanced research computing in 5 sites across Canada. Unfortunately, the feds have not kept up investments in advanced research computing. So now the AI community is becoming really vocal and advocating for funding to enable the kind of compute infrastructure that will allow Canada to benefit from being, you know, one of the centers of AI innovation in the world, and benefit not only the research community, but as you mentioned, private sector as well. The other area that we're involved in AI, of course, is in cybersecurity. So we understand, you know, these threat actors. I'll share with you an analogy. I got a briefing from an analyst from the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and he talked about the 4 nation state threat actors we all know about. And his analogy just stuck with me. He said, well, if Russia is a hurricane, then China is climate change. So they are evolving and deploying threats that is extremely difficult to keep up with. So on our cybersecurity mandate, we are investigating and deploying AI tools to create some kind of coordinated defense mechanism against that kind of really relentless threat actor activity that we see.
Thank you. All of my fellow panelists have made excellent points. I'll actually repeat something I heard last week. I was at a conference in UCSD, and Casey Claffey was giving a keynote, and she asked ChatGPT on what AI and networking, relationship is, and said if data is gold, then the network is oxygen for AI. So that's what she said. So if you think about that, without the network, the AI revolution would not be happening, because if you think of all these LLMs like ChatGPT, the reason they have been able to train on the whole internet data in data centers, obviously huge power-consuming data centers, is by moving the data into these AI training algorithms and training it on all, the body of language that exists. So without networking, there would have not been this AI revolution that you see right now. So given that, I think for an R&E network also, as the AI revolution happens across multiple scientific discipline areas, you will see a lot of data moving around between where the data is to where it needs to be computed, whether it's computed at a supercomputing center or in the cloud or anywhere per se. The other aspect is, and I think this is an open opportunity for everyone who works on networking, is how to use AI to ease networking, or what you call AI for operations. And whether it be capacity planning or cybersecurity or looking at your tickets and giving automated responses on tickets, whatever those range of possibilities are, there are a lot of possibilities. But the central of all those possibilities is good data. And I think, it is like garbage data in, garbage model out, and garbage results. So I think the onus is on us to curate and get good data, because that's something that will help the R&E community actually take advantage of all the AI revolution that is going out there. So we can get some good models, and we can actually improve the services that we offer to all the members that we have. The second one, I think, is for engineers out there. I think all of you mistrust things that you don't understand. So I think getting explainable AI will be really important, because you put data in, it gives out a result. Can you really trust it? Are you going to start making your network configuration changes based on that? So I think helping support some of the explainable AI research will be really important, because, we have seen how, when network is a black box, how people work with us. So if AI is a black box, we really need to crack open that AI black box. And I think, so I do definitely agree with all my panelists. The AI revolution is here to say, how are we going to take advantage of it? How is this community going to step up and take advantage of all the work that is going on different aspects, like is something that's going to determine on how quickly we can take advantage.
Great. So I want to leave some time for questions from all of you. I'm going to go one more question, just to ask everybody to briefly answer. Well, it's hard to do because this is a pretty deep question. So big data transfers often dominate when we talk about discussions about global collaborations. We always talk about moving large amounts of data. Are there other aspects that we also need to consider? I'm going to start with Inder. Okay. Back this way.
Yeah, so obviously big data transfers are the bread and butter of research and education networks, but there are a couple of interesting new projects that I would like to talk about. One is called Ares. It is about coordinating renewable energy and grid response, and coordinating all different kind of physical or electromechanical devices. If there is a power outage, or if there is a shortage of power, how do you actually balance power? And that is latency dependent. So, they care about jitter and latency, not about the bandwidth. And low latency is needed in order to coordinate a response across a wide area in terms of some kind of a power event or a grid that's kind of part of the smart grid initiative. And the other one is about remote sensors. So as we start building, more and more remote labs, what used to happen is you would, put a grad student, on a car or on a flight, get them, and they will get the SD cards, collect the data. And that was kind of almost done in the background. But I think people want digital twins, physical twins, and they need data real time. So how do we actually use the private 5G infrastructure, the LEO satellite infrastructure to get data from remote field sensors in real time for science is the other thing that is happening.
All right. Thank you. I will pick up. Thanks, Inder, for the reference to LEO. Some of you may know that Canada deployed in our northernmost territory, Nunavut, we completed the National Research and Education Network by joining Nunavut to the NREN through low Earth orbit satellite technology. The first deployment of LEO technology, we understand, in NRENs around the world, and not only enables a truly transformative experience for Nunavummiut across that territory, which is 1/5 the land mass of Canada. It's an extraordinary territory, but also when we talk about grand challenges, so climate change, much of the impacts of climate change you are seeing accelerated in the far north. So ice loss, habitat loss for polar bears and seals and narwhals, et cetera. So this is an opportunity for us to deploy this technology, get some data, and understand how we can continue to evolve sensor networks and other research installations, leverage that LEO technology to get ahead of this problem that is coming at us really, really quickly. And Howard, talking heads and a ripe mango.
Success. Right, mango. All right. Success.
Thank you. From our end, I think we have one of the projects that we currently have. It's working with Red Clara in the South American NRENs, which is called Bella 2, which is a inter-Atlantic fiber optic that comes from Portugal all the way to Brazil, and then it goes up and it goes into the Yucatan Peninsula. In that project, it's certainly going to give us a great opportunity to work with some of the research institutes that are in the Yucatan Peninsula that otherwise we could not get into. And especially with the new, one of the projects that was it's recently been completed, which is called the Mayan train that goes all the way through the Yucatan Peninsula. And within the Mayan train, the government was able to run the fiber optics all through it. And that's going to give us an opportunity to get into some of the most remote areas in the southern region of Mexico, which in the past we couldn't get into. And just because of the geography that hits that region. So that's it's enabling us to be able to work on environmental projects that are going to be initiating for the region, for the southern region of Mexico, and also to be able to participate in projects that are driven in South America and also in the European Union. So,
great. So I think one of the things that a bunch of us in the community have been working on is on routing security and routing integrity. This is a really critical element for the Global Research Education Network. We certainly not only want to stay on par with other networks around the world, ideally we want to be ahead of this. This is a critical part of keeping the integrity of our networks and protecting all our collective activities. And it's not just in the security domain. It's also, if you've probably read recently, there have been a lot of cuts of international cables, and it's been impacting the internet at large. And so understanding when those things happen, how resilient the network is critically important, how the traffic should flow on all the backup paths that we provide each other. And there's some activity going on in the future that there's gonna be some collaborations around improving and refining that for the R&E community. But I think for me, the other big thing I think about is community. And what I mean by that is, very unfortunately, I think we all know this over time, that many of the communities that are either first impacted or greatly impacted by some of these global challenges, like the like the pandemic or certainly climate change, don't have access to the same cyber infrastructure that more well-resourced communities have. And many of the institutions that support those communities don't have the same access. And I think, to carry on with what Inder said about the oxygen for AI, I sort of said you can't have AI without CI. And so I think, a part of things that need to be focused on is efforts like the Golden State Network that's here in California, of improving connectivity to rural areas, to underserved communities. That's absolutely critical, because you want the institutions in those places that represent those communities to have access to the cyber infrastructure, so they don't have an AI divide that could occur. We work with a collaboration called the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium for historically Black colleges, universities, and tribal colleges, universities. CNIC has a long history of that as well. And those things are really important, I think, collectively as a focus when we talk about not just the glories of our ability collectively to move large data around, but it's also who has access to that and how do we continue to support that.
Wow, I don't know that I can add a whole lot, but I think I'll close with a favorite quote of mine, which is build it and they will come. And I think what we've heard here clearly demonstrates that. And I think there's not too much bandwidth. There's not too much network. I think we have to think about it's not just network connectivity for a few and for a few use cases. It's network connectivity for all because it's part of our everyday life. I think the other piece that we all have front and center is cybersecurity, because all this data and the interactions that we use the network for are critical, and any disruption could mean a critical disruption to healthcare. It could be life-threatening. It could impact people as they traverse our world. So I think we need to think about integrity, but we also need to think about scalability. And scalability means not just the size of what we're building, but how are we going to support it? How can we support it more effectively, smarter? And we can use AI to do this, as well as some of my colleagues have already spoken about. I think there are certainly tasks that can be offloaded, and we need to think about how we can leverage these tools. Thank you.
Great. I think maybe we have time for one. No, we don't have time for any audience questions. So. All right. Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everybody in the panel, and thanks all of you.